Welcome back everyone. Now today I'm going to be cooking a lovely warming cottage pie made with minced beef. So let's have a rundown of our ingredients. First of all, there's our beef. I've got a kilo there, 12% fat British beef mince. I have got 2 medium-sized white onions. I've got 2 cloves of garlic, 3 carrots, 3 sticks of celery. I've got 2 sprigs of rosemary. I'm going to use 2 bay leaves and a tablespoon of thyme. I've also got 1 litre of beef stock. I've got about 250 ml of red wine. I'm going to be using 4 tablespoons of Worcestershire Sauce. I've got a couple of beef stock pots there for added flavour and richness. Obviously sea salt, black pepper and a tablespoon of tomato purée. So we're going to be frying off our mince in our frying pan now. Put some olive oil in there ready to go. Saucepan for the mashed potatoes, and the cottage pie is going to be cooked in our cast iron pot over there. Now I've got 2 kilos of Maris Piper potatoes there. They're going to be mashed with 250 grams of slightly salted butter. Now it's optional if you want to put cheese on top. I've got 200 grams of extra mature cheddar there, which I'm going to grate and put on the top so that'll all melt on as well. I'm going to be serving this with some beautiful tender stem broccoli and some carrots which were left over from what I bought for the cottage pie. So those are our ingredients. Let's get cooking. Right, first thing to do is to prepare our vegetables. So I've peeled my carrots, cut them in half, and then I cut them into flat pieces, as you can see. Then I'm just going to cut them into little strips like this. You can do this in a food processor if you like. Depends how big you want the pieces. Something like that is fine. So, cut them into strips. And we're going to do a similar thing with our celery, same way. And I'm going to dice the onions, and I'm going to finely dice the cloves of garlic, and I'm going to chop up the rosemary really fine, chop that up really small. So I'm going to carry on with that now and get all these vegetables done. Okay, so these are our vegetables all chopped up. I've got the finely diced 2 cloves of garlic there. The rosemary's been chopped up pretty small, as you can see. That's our celery into little squares, carrot into little squares, and the 2 onions have been diced. I'm going to get a low to medium heat under my pot. A splash of olive oil, a couple of tablespoons. Straight in with our onions and our carrots and the celery and the rosemary. We're going to leave the garlic to one side until this is all softened. Now I'm going to cook these for a good 25 minutes on a low to medium heat until everything is softened up. Could be 25 minutes, just check it. You want it all nice and soft, and then we're going to add our garlic and other stuff. So I'll see you in 20 minutes. So now our vegetables have had just over 20 minutes. As you can see, they've softened up quite a bit. What I'm going to do now is add my garlic, mix that around, keep the heat going, and while the garlic is softening for 5 minutes or so, I'm going to bring my frying pan to the front, move that to the back, keep stirring it, it's nice and soft, soften the garlic. While that's happening, I'm going to fry my beef. So, straight with the beef, you want to break this up into small pieces with the back of a wooden spoon. Now you want to keep frying this until you get some colour on it. and then you can transfer it to a plate and cook the other packet. So I'm going to carry on with that. So that's how you want your minced beef. There's my first batch. This is my second batch. As you can see, it's got some colour on it. If you had some moisture come out of your beef, just keep frying it on a high heat until the moisture disappears. And that's how we want it, just like that. So I'm going to put that to one side. Need that in a little while. I'll bring my pot back over. Medium heat. I'm going to go in with my tablespoon of tomato puree. In that goes. And my 4 tablespoons of plain flour. Now keep the heat underneath it. Give it a good mix. You want to mix this around for a couple of minutes. So I'm going to just mix it up for a couple of minutes on a medium heat. Alright, there we go. Just had a couple of minutes. All mixed in nicely. You can see it sticking to the bottom a little bit. But we're going to deglaze that now with our red wine. Our 250ml of red wine. In it goes. Turn up the heat, moderate to high. Now you want to bubble this away, reduce it down, so get it bubbling, cook it for about 5 minutes until it's reduced down a little bit. So I'm just going to carry on with that. Okay, so our mixture has had about 3 to 4 minutes, and that has reduced down. I'm going back in with the beef now. That's my first lot of beef. My second lot of beef. Get all that in there. Juices. Okay. Also, my tablespoon of dried thyme. That's going in. My bay leaves. My Worcestershire sauce. 4 tablespoons. My litre of beef stock. That's going in. And last but not least, my 2 beef stock pots. In they go. Right, I'm going to bring this up to a boil, and then we're going to simmer this mixture for 30 to 45 minutes until you reach the thickness. I mean, because this will thicken up, and you want it a lot thicker than this, so it's going to be about 30 to 45 minutes until it reaches the desired thickness. It might be done in 30, might be done in 45, we'll have to wait and see, but it's around that time. So bring it to the boil and then simmer it, gently bubbling, 30 to 45 minutes. I'll see you in a minute, see you then. Okay, so we're up to the boil now, as you can see, bubbling away, sort of low to medium heat. At this point, I'm going to go in with a couple of pinches of sea salt and a good few grinds of black pepper. Now we can take this for seasoning later before we put our potatoes on top. So I like plenty of black pepper. We might add a bit more later when we taste it. So give that a mix in. Remember, good 30 to 45 minutes. Make sure you scrape any bits off the bottom and keep stirring it. Don't let it stick or burn. In the meantime, I'm going to peel my potatoes, put them in some cold water, get them all rinsed off, and I think I'll julienne my carrots, peel them and cut them into julienne strips, and I'll just do that while this is cooking away. Don't forget to keep stirring it, 30 to 45 minutes. Okay, now our mixture here has had a good 45 minutes. As you can see, it's beautiful, look at that, it's nice and rich. I've tasted it. I added a couple more pinches of sea salt and a bit more black pepper. Now it's absolutely perfect for me, so taste it, see if you need more salt and pepper. I've fished out my bay leaves because they've done their job. No one wants to have one of them while they're eating. So they've been taken out. While this was cooking, I peeled my potatoes, rinsed them. They've been sitting in cold water. I'm now going to drain them off and start boiling them. I also julienne my carrots, rinsed off my tender stem broccoli. That's ready to boil. That only takes about 4 minutes. So next step is to turn this off completely, let it cool down a bit, because if you put your mashed potato on it while it's bubbling away, it's going to sink. Okay, as you can see, my potatoes are bubbling away. I want to cook them like that for about 20 minutes until they're tender. I'm chucking a couple of pinches of sea salt in there. My beef mixture is over there, no heat underneath it. That's going to sit there until we're ready to add the mash. As you may have noticed, my butter has been sitting out the whole time. That is at room temperature. While these potatoes are boiling, I'm going to grate my 200 grams of extra mature cheddar. So, I'm going to get on with that. See you in 20 minutes. Right, our potatoes have had about 10 minutes so far. Now at this point, you want to preheat your oven to 180 degrees. Give it 10 minutes to warm up. Make some space in there. You want to put it sort of low to middle shelf so you can fit it in there. If you haven't got a pot this big, or you want to make for less people, this serves like 6 to 8 people. It depends on their appetites, it could be 6. If you haven't got a pot this big, you can just halve all the ingredients that I've added. Just halve everything and make half the amount. But you know, you can heat this up the next day. It's lovely. Whatever, you know, I might have it for lunch tomorrow, to be honest. Heat it up in the oven. So, oven's preheating now. Potatoes are going to be another 10 minutes, and we're going to start mashing them up. So, see you in 10 minutes. Right, I've drained off my potatoes. They've had 20 minutes. I've put them back in the pot on a low heat on my big burner. I'm going to leave them on there for about 5 minutes. Give them a good shake. I want them to go fluffy. You don't want any moisture in there at all. Get them nice and fluffy before you add the butter. I put some cuts in my butter, as you can see, just to help it mash a bit easier. But that is at room temperature. That's ready to melt in. My meat mixture has been sitting there the whole time. I don't know if you can see, it's formed like a little thin skin over the top. Don't stir this now, leave it, because that little skin will help the mashed potatoes sit on top without sinking in. So that's all good. Now I'm just going to give this a couple more minutes on a low heat just to dry them off, get them nice and fluffy. Then I'm going to chuck in my butter and I'm going to chuck in half of my grated cheddar cheese. I'm going to put half in there, mash it all together, and I'll put the other half on top. Remember, cheese is optional. I'm not sure if cheese was an original ingredient of the cottage pie. I don't think it was. My mum always just used to use the mashed potato on top. She never added cheese, so it's optional, but you know, cheese is tasty, so why not? So I'm just going to dry these off and start mashing them up. Right, they're dried enough. Heat off. Bring them over here. This is the satisfying bit now. All that butter going straight in. Now I'm going to give these a good mash. And when they're mashed up, I'm going to sprinkle half of my cheddar in there and give it another mix with a spoon. No more mashing them. So I'm just going to mash them up and then add my cheddar. Right, there's our mashed potato. All the butter mashed in. I'm just going to take about half of my extra mature cheddar. Maybe a little bit less than half, actually. A bit more to sprinkle on top. A bit less than half. Right, no more mashing. Just stir that in. Give it a good old mix. The cheese will melt in, don't worry about that. And I'm going to go in with some black pepper. No need to add any salt now. We put salt in the water while I was cooking the potatoes. The butter is salted and the cheese is salty, so just black pepper in there. Right, I'm going to give that a mix, then I'm going to start topping my cottage pie with it. Right, so here we go, just finishing this off. It's sitting on top very nicely. Just the right amount of potato there. You can see, look, it just sits on top. You can use a piping bag if you want, make it look all pretty. but make it look rustic, it's better. And a few peaks and little bits sticking up. That's it. Put the last few bits on. They're sitting on there very nicely. Perfect amount of potato, I'd say. Look at that. Used it all up. That was 2 kilos, or just over 2 kilos of potatoes. Perfect amount for this. There we go. Now I'm going to get my cheese. My last half of cheese. As I said, optional. Sprinkle that all over. And I'm going to put that in the oven on 180 degrees for half an hour, or until it goes crispy and brown on top. You'll know when it's done, but 25 minutes to half an hour on 180 degrees. I'll show you when it's done. Right, here we go. That has had half an hour exactly in the oven. I'm going to use oven gloves for this. Oh, look at that. That is perfect. That is beautiful. Bubbling away. Now, I'll leave this to sit for 10 minutes before I cut into it. In the meantime, I'm going to boil my vegetables. So, see you in a minute. And there we have it, everybody. Beautiful homemade cottage pie. That is lovely. Some tender stem broccoli, buttered carrots. I'm going to be serving this with a lovely Californian Malbec. Oh, and last but not least, a little bit of creamy horseradish sauce on the side. Goes lovely with beef. Look at that. Now, wouldn't you love to come in from a nice cold day and eat that? Beautiful. Well, don't forget to subscribe, everyone. Give us a thumbs up, and I'll see you on the next one. That is beautiful.